So this is going to be really easy to do. All I have to do is line up the hub with the splines of the shaft and line this up between here and here and this into here. And then all I got to do after that is just shove this bolt down underneath and oh Jesus. Welcome to Dirt, Sweat, and Gears, where even our workbench has four-wheel steering. We are back here with the Facebook Marketplace Miata, and if you've been following this saga, I left off not really having finished anything, but have been doing a lot of things. And so today, we're going to keep going in that direction. Let's just get right into it, and I can show you what I've got going on. As I last left off, we were still waiting on the rear knuckles to finish this suspension project. That is going to arrive in about 4 days, so thankfully this will be done soon. So this is the final product of the wiring in the front of the car. This project is done. We have the old power wire serving as the switch for the new circuit. It runs here and joins the conduit that the fans use to the back of the car. You have here the plugs to the fans. Both fans intake air. They're both running in the correct direction. And it runs into a conduit. It grounds down here. And it runs to a conduit to the firewall where I have a brand new grommet in the firewall to protect the wires. Inside the car, we've made some major progress. We have the stereo wiring, power wire for the head unit, run underneath the carpet. It actually splits off of that same conduit that runs to the front of the car. So it really made efficient use of conduit and running everything nice and clean. Back here is where I ran out of conduit. That's not a really big deal. I have more coming in, I think, today, and I'll be able to easily add it to this existing run of wire because there's a nice big hole for some reason in the back of the car. So I can just run it right through there, no problem at all, into the trunk where I am currently working. You see here I have my power distribution block and a piece of steel. This piece of steel is going to bolt to the battery tray, which is way too big for this car, but it's already here, so I'm going to use it. There's also a third bolt that is not being used. I'm going to find a bolt for this and use it to mount this piece of steel in 3 places so that it doesn't rattle around. Over here, the fuse panel and relays are going to bolt right to this plate here. And I'm going to use spacers on the back of this so that the wires have plenty of room to exit out from underneath the panel. And then, of course, I'm going to run conduit over everything, and it'll be nice and clean, and it'll tuck away, hopefully, up here. And then it'll be a mostly usable trunk, and I'll be able to call this project done. You can see I removed the seats, and I made a interesting discovery. First of all, there is a lot of rust at the bottom of these seats. This car must have filled up with water and sat for some period of time. Maybe they parked it with the top down during an El Nino or something. I don't know, but this is pretty gross. I don't think I'm going to do anything about it because it's already here and it's not doing any harm. But there's another interesting thing going on here. You see this here? This is a seat cover. They tried really, really hard to anchor this seat cover down, including bolting it underneath frame rails, tying it in to, really tying it tight to the seat itself. They really tried hard to secure this thing down, and I thought maybe, what are they hiding? So I started to cut away at it, and you see here, there's some, I think, normal wear and tear. I think that'll clean up, no problem. But I started to reveal the seat, and let's just take a look at it. God damn it, dude. So I started to reveal the seat, and everything's just fine. It's actually a good looking seat. This might be the cleanest part of the car, in fact. There is kind of a wiring catastrophe here coming out of the seat. They just, butt connected it to the head unit, and that's really not a good way to go. So I'm going to rewire this, probably run new wire from the speakers themselves out to the two seats, and then I'm going to run those into a harness, which is going to join the circuits for the left to the left of the driver's side and the right of the passenger side to the right of the driver's side. I'm going to join that together at the harness and then run it up to the front of the car to the head unit so that the long run is actually less wire. Because otherwise I would have to connect that together at the head unit, and that's just stupid when I could just do it back here. Well, now I've turned my Prelude into a workbench. And that is because yesterday I was exploring some mounting solutions for my junction box and fuse panel inside the trunk, and I had discovered an unwanted guest. Rust! Yep, so this car was, I'm assuming probably at the bottom of a lake or something, because, actually, no, the rust isn't that bad. I think what happened was there's no seals on these taillights. There was also a bunch of open holes here for mounting stuff. I have no idea what, because they're long gone. And water just collected whenever the car drove in the rain. And also, these holes down here are all wrinkled from the car getting banged around. So this is stuff I've got to repair pretty much now. The rest isn't that bad. If I take care of it now, it'll be just fine. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to take care of that. I'm going to seal up the holes. There's also a tiny hole over here to take care of. And then we'll put this car back together. It came apart pretty easily, so I don't think it'll be too bad going back together. So ordered new gaskets for the taillights on both sides. So hopefully that will, when it's all over, seal us up from the rust. And in these wrinkled holes here, since I have the old plugs, but obviously they're not round, so I'm going to just get some JB Weld, mix it up, and just cake it in so that it forms a nice tight bond. And then once it's bonded underneath, I'm going to go spray some underbody coating. I'm going to have to drop the exhaust to do this side, but that's not a problem. The same thing with over here. Once I figure out what I need to do over here, I'm going to just go on the other side and spray the hell out of it with rubberized undercoating just to help waterproof it on top of the JB Weld or any RTV that I want to use to plug things up. I'm also not sure about these plugs. I'm going to take a look at the underside and see what I can do about that. Well, I ended up having to get a new drill because my old drill fell apart. So I got the new drill, and I've been busy with the wire wheel as well as the sander, switching kind of back and forth between the two. And I think I've done a good enough job. I have just sprayed it down with rust neutralizer, which is why some of these spots are black. You're not supposed to use rust neutralizer on surfaces that don't have rust. And you can clearly see there's a mix of the two in this mess over here. So once this is dry, I will hit it again with the wire wheel to clean up the clean metal again, so that I can lay down primer and not have anything to be concerned about. Does this bother me? Yes, a little bit. But I think A, it is localized to this panel, and B, it's not going to get worse with what I'm doing to it. So hopefully my efforts will seal it up and preserve it well enough to last as long as I intend to own this car. Next, I am going to get some JB Weld and start cutting some plates to put over these kind of holes here. These are just used to be grommets and plugs. I don't really see a need for them to have rubber there when the rubber can deteriorate. and there are other means of extracting water from a car. So I am going to just close them up, and anything that has a threaded hole, I'm going to throw a bolt in, and then on the other side, I will coat the whole thing with rubberized undercoating, if it isn't already. I got the first coat of primer done. Actually, first and second coat. I'm ready to lay down the red paint now. In the back here, I have more or less finished the majority of the rust repair that I have in this back corner. I've also JB welded these caps in the back here because the compartment here was crushed a little bit, and so I just decided to seal it off so that water can't come in from underneath the car. And I've also blocked off one of the holes in this side here also. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Once this paint dries and hardens, before I go do clear coat, I'm going to go ahead and just spot clean this hole. JB Weld these little plates in here, here, and here. And then for all of these threaded holes, if I don't use the hole, I'm going to throw a bolt in there so that they don't take on water as well. I also got new gaskets for these taillights. I'll put those in once I'm done in here because having this kind of hole here allows for more light in here. It's a little bit easier to work with. So I'm leaving those until it's time. The rest of the back I'm not doing anything with right now. I have this broken back piece over here. I'm just going to put it right back on because replacements are expensive and it's not required at this time. Underneath the car you see a nice little leak from our transmission. I have new seals and a new clutch kit arriving tomorrow, so today we're going to get started removing the transmission. Now, this project is quite intimidating because I really don't like being underneath the car. I really don't like being underneath this car. It has such a short wheelbase that the jack stands are like not even 4 feet apart. So it's a little bit concerning having that much weight so close together like that. Let's just go ahead and get started with this. This is probably going to be miserable, so I don't expect to spend a lot of time filming underneath the car just because there are transmission removal tutorials all over the YouTubes and that's not what I'm here for. I got to get this car on the road. So I reconsidered my position on doing the clutch and transmission work. I got underneath the car and I started to feel like I was in a coffin. It was an effort just to pick my head up and look at something. So I just really don't want to be under here. It could be a little bit of claustrophobia. I just don't know. You know, maybe when everything else is back together, I might change my mind and go ahead and do it. But right now, I am leaning towards paying someone to do it. But on the inside of the car, I've started to wire up the stereo. I've got the harness running out to the back seats. You see here, this plugs into the seat itself. This, since I have the passenger seat out, is disconnected. I've crossed the wires right here where it's all nice and fat. This is so that we have one output to the left and one output to the right before, and then it splits off so that each seat has its own left and right channel. Really kind of cool to sit in the car and to really hear that left and right in the rear speakers. I did make a little bit of an upsie here. You see how the ignition cylinder is in position 1? Well, the battery is unplugged right now, but when the battery is plugged in, the radio is not turned on. And that is because I ran the switch 12 volt to the fan wire. And so the radio only comes on when it's in position 2. It's not a deal breaker, but it is a little bit annoying. Just this feeling that I can't use the radio like I can in a normal car. And I just didn't think of it. I am going to see if I can track down the switch wire inside the dash here. If I can't find it, then I'll just address it later on. Like I said, it's not a deal breaker. Back here, we have the rear bulkhead painted and ready for clear. I'm probably right now going to go cut the notch for this wiring harness into that right there before I put the clear on it. That way I can do whatever touch-ups I need to do, and then I'll clear it, and then I'll put it on. In the trunk here, we just have the battery just kind of set here. This was so that I can test out the radio. The paint is dry here, and well, the paint is dry here. The JB Weld is dry here. This is primered, but I am not going to paint it until I drill the holes to mount the junction box. Once I drill the holes to mount the junction box, then I'll do another coat of primer, and then I'll paint and clear it, and then I'll be able to mount it in here. These are the mounting holes. They match up with whatever this was supposed to be. It is now going to be the holes for this. So I have to put some washers here to raise it up so that it comes up even with this little bump here. This way everything will line up and hopefully won't rattle too much. If it rattles, then I can like super glue some cork to this or something. I don't know, whatever. I'll figure something out. I have also installed the rear end pieces. Since I'm not going to replace these just yet, all I did was put the gasket on so that the trunk doesn't leak. Hopefully it doesn't leak. This is cool. I got the stereo all wired up. Front and rear works perfectly now. The microphone works. Let's shut this idiot up for a second. I've got the microphone wired up and tested. I called my wife from here and it works perfectly. Bluetooth works. My phone is not connected to anything, just by Bluetooth, and it works. So this is more or less a success. However, there is one small annoyance. I was not able to figure out position 1 to turn the radio on. I did find the constant power to replace the yellow wire that I had run from the back of the car. So I figured, since I have an opportunity to use the factory wiring circuit there, I figured I may as well just use it. I connected the yellow wire into another socket on the same harness that just goes nowhere. Nothing happens here. And I took the fuse out the back, so there's no power running to it right now. You know, maybe I'll find a use for it later on. I don't mind that it's there and not being used. I do mind this, though. This is not a deal breaker. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and see it turns off. This is not a deal breaker. In fact, I'm just going to leave it this way for a while until I have a better opportunity to take the car apart and to do some more fun things with it. This works just fine for now. If you're on the road, you can turn the car on, talk on the phone, listen to music while you drive. So it checks all of the most important boxes. It just doesn't have the functionality of a normal car just yet. So that's room for improvement later on. Bit of a project update here. I've got the front end back together. The stereo works and everything, but since the battery's unhooked, I'm going to have to reprogram everything once I get it hooked up again. I found a good spot for the microphone, just kind of right up there. I might move it, but where it is, it doesn't flop around. I don't have to worry about it falling off or anything. It is a little bit ugly, but whatever. There's just some screws and hardware down here on the floor that I'm going to clean up once I am ready to put the center console back together. There's my shop assistant testing out the seat. And I've got the manual over there. That's going to go in the glove box because that stereo is actually kind of hard to use. Once I have the clear coat done on that bulkhead, that's going to go back in. Carpet's going to go back on, and then I can put the center in. Over here in the trunk, I'm almost done. I have sprayed some primer on top of the caps on the holes that I put. And once that dries, spray that with some red, and then I can start bolting down this hardware, the distribution box, the battery tray, and start getting that all worked out. This is not bolted in yet because I lost one of these bolts when I was putting the strut assembly together, so I have to go take one off of that one and go match it up and get a new one. So once that's done, I can bolt that in, and really, final product, I'm not unhappy with it. I do have a lot of unused fuses, but you know, with this car, I have no idea what the future of this car is going to hold, so I wanted to leave room to expand. While we wait for these hubs, I'm going to install a new master and slave cylinder and a stainless steel braided brake line, because, like I said, I don't trust anything on this car. It seems to work just fine, but again, I don't trust anything. When I was looking at the transmission, I noticed the hard line was all bent up, all out of shape. None of the brackets were in the right place. None of the brackets were even connected. So I figured, let's just get rid of all that, replace it with this stainless steel braided line and master and slave cylinder. This was not expensive, surprisingly. This was not very much. So I went ahead and made the purchase, and we're going to go ahead and do it. Oh yeah! Look at what just arrived today. This means there is nothing stopping me now. Here is the clutch stuff. This is all going to go in the car, and I'm going to take it down to the shop, and they're going to do it. But in order to take the car down there, I have to get the wheels on. So we're going to get the wheels on. I've also got this stupid plate all ready to go. The trunk is ready to go back together. I have to find enough bolts to fill these holes, and hopefully everything all fits in there. It should be fine. And the trunk will, if I did it correctly, be waterproof. So let's waste no time. Let's get these damn wheel hubs on. I've been waiting for these forever, and I cannot wait to get this car on the ground. So I goofed. I guess we're not in my garage if things go together without any problems. It turns out I put the wrong sleeve in the lower control arm. This isn't that bad because these are actually fairly easy to press out. I can do it with my big C-clamp and a socket and a bolt. So I just line it up just like when I was pressing out the old bushings themselves. All I have to do is press out this center piece here and replace it with the one where it goes. I'm pretty sure it's this one up here has the sleeves that I need, because for some reason I thought that one took the long bolt and that one took two short bolts. I guess I was very much mistaken, and I get to pay for that mistake right now. I have to move pretty fast today because I'm way behind. Yesterday I had quite a few delays. Most of these delays being the bushings, the bolt collars were swapped between the upper arm and the lower arm down here. I had to press out the metal collars that the bolts sit in because they were in the wrong place. So that cost quite a bit of time. Once I got it all together, you see it actually looks really good. Once I got it all together, I realized then that the sway bar was upside down, so I had to take that out, flip it over. And then I noticed that the adjustable perch here was being way down at the last thread, was impossible to get the little hook behind without hitting the axle here. So I had to unbolt the shock and twist it all the way up to here in order to be able to adjust it further without having to drop the shock again. So that actually cost me a lot of time yesterday and caused me to be behind. I really wanted to have this car on the ground yesterday so that I could start planning my final adjustments. But we're there now. I'm going to put the car down now. I still have some work to do inside the trunk, but this is inconsequential in the grand scheme of the work. This will go very fast. This, not so much, because I have to raise the car, lower the car, raise the car, lower the car, and keep adjusting it until I get all four corners even. So, before we do that, let's just take a look at this rear suspension. I mean, everything is new. Everything is beautiful. It won't be this clean for very long. In fact, it won't be this clean as soon as I pull it out into my dirt driveway. But we can admire it just for a second here. This is so good. I am so happy about this. Huge thanks to Treasure Coast Miata. Huge thanks to Flying Miata. And huge thanks to Rock Auto. None of them gave me any money or parts, but I spent a lot of money on parts from them, and they delivered, literally delivered. So I am very happy I was able to get the parts I needed to fix this car. This is not a terrible ride height. I may rake the back just a little bit, but I'm going to do that after the suspension settles. This is definitely, I think, good enough to start doing some driving and to get the car aligned. So let's go take it down the street and get an alignment, because all the wheels are pointing in different directions. All right, so right off the bat, there's a couple of odds and ends I still need to take care of, like this spacer for the seat belt bolt and the lock nut on the driver's side rear strut tower. I also need to recenter the steering wheel, and I think I want to advance the timing just a touch, because it feels like it dies a little too easily. But I hear both fans whirring away. Oh, the visibility in this car is incredible. Yeah, I press the throttle from idle and it just like, it hesitates, it wants to die. But wow, this car is... Wow! The ride isn't too bad for being stiffer shocks and springs. It's actually not bad at all. I think that's not a good sound. So I put the car up on jack stands and quickly discovered that the awful noise that the car was making while I was driving was just the dust shield for the brake rotors. So they were bent, they were scraping against the brake rotors, and that's why it got worse as the brakes heated up. Thankfully, that was a very easy fix. I just bend the metal back out. Hopefully that is resolved. My issue with the bogging when I am just under 4,000 RPM, I believe that is fuel pump related. I did some research and learned that a common problem as these cars age is that the fuel pumps and fuel filters get clogged, or the pumps don't build enough pressure. And since it's so easy to swap out, unlike the 92 Accord, and it's so cheap, unlike the 92 Accord, I just went ahead and ordered the pump and the filter, and I'm going to replace those when they arrive. In the meantime, I'm just going to suffer with the bogging under 4,000 RPM. It's not that much of a problem, and hopefully I don't think that's going to be a problem with my wife getting to work. So that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you like what you see, like, share, comment, subscribe. If you don't like what you see, maybe you think I should have set this car on fire and walked away from it without looking back, leave a comment anyway. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week.